Blog Talk Radio.
Vichamo Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit Neye AKANFO NANASOM Da Medinde Ojirapo Kwesi Ranehem Pata Akan HOODOO MAYN Amaruka Etipi Mu Ojirapo Ojirama. Greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning African Black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Ojirapo Kwesi Ranehem Pata Akan, Ojirapo of the Hoodoo Nation in North America within OHYE. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the show. Once again, we're going to put some links in the chat room right now. The first link we're going to place in the chat room is for our publication, the Okraa Complex, the Soul of AKANFO. That is the major text we're going to be dealing with tonight. And also we'll put a link to the publications page as well, so you can see the link to all of the publications. For individuals who are new to the broadcast, we have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. On Monday nights, of course, Joe Dow, we have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion, where we deal specifically with the Akan expression of Nanasom, of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African Ancestral Religion. Because, number one, because we are Akan. Number two, because of the misinformation that has been propagated about Akan cosmology, philosophy, culture, ritual practice, spirituality, the nature of the Great Mother, Great Father, Nyame wa Nyame, the Abosom, the Nananomans, for the deities, and spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, and so forth. So we bring accurate information in that regard, also showing our direct blood connection to our ancestral culture. On Abinada Tuesday night, we have Ojira, which is purification, and we deal with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African Ancestral Religion, Nanasom in general, no matter what ancestral group we come from, wherever Black people are in the world. We're practicing ancestral religious practices that are inherited through our blood circle. We align with the Great Mother and the Great Father through the agency of the deities, the forces of nature, and the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated of our direct blood circle. So no matter where we have gone in the world, from ancient times, tens of thousands of years ago, migrating from ancient Kanat, so-called Nubia Kemet, throughout Afuraitkaitnit into the Western Hemisphere, North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe, and so forth, even after the fourth migration to the Western Hemisphere during the Musuo Kesi, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era, we continue to maintain our ancestral religious practices. And those who maintain our ancestral religious practices, for example, the forms of Hoodoo, the Akan tradition in North America, Vodou, the Fon and Ebe tradition in North America, and Grigri, the Bambara tradition in North America, Juju, the Yoruba tradition in North America, and so forth. We maintain these traditions. We were motivated and guided and empowered to wage war against the whites and their offspring and force the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. So wherever we have gone in the world, we are impacted by our ancestral religious practices. They govern every aspect of our lives. We align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order through the agency of the Abosom and the deities and ancestral spirits, and so forth. So we deal with the purification of concepts and philosophy and culture, and show how ancestral religious practice, ancestral religion in general, Nanasom, impacts every thought, intention, and action. And therefore, through Ojira purification, we operationalize our ancestral religious practice. So we deal with texts from ancient Kemet, we deal with various ritual practices and so forth, cosmology, culture, philosophy, and so forth, on Abinada Tuesday night for our Ojira broadcast. On Awukuda or Akuada Wednesday night, we have Egua Marketplace. And we bring individuals, organizations, institutions in the Afuraitkaitnit community, the Black community, those who are serving our people with products, services, and so forth, serving our people in a positive capacity, and those who maintain their ancestral religious practices in the process of serving our people through products and services. So we have Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit businesses, organizations, and institutions, many who have come onto the show and will continue to come onto the show, who have sat with us for 2 hours, introduce themselves, introduce their business, organization, institution, the philosophy behind their business, organization, and institution, and how their ancestral religious practice informed that philosophy. As part of that process, we have published the OHYE Economic Development Model, an economic development model rooted in our ancestral religious philosophy and practice. And when you go to the OHYE Economic Development page, you can download that model. You can also download the 4-part series that we did on Blog Talk dissecting that model. You can also download and connect with the websites of the various businesses, organizations, and institutions who have come onto the show, and connect with their websites, and also download the links to their broadcast archives of their interviews where they sat with us and talked about their business, organization, or institution. In the OHYE Economic Development Model, we have a strategy which is starve the beast and feed the product. That means we make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then we starve the beast and feed the pride. We reallocate those funds away from those white businesses and direct them to the black business, organization, or institution of the week. In the OHYE Economic Development Model, we are targeting one Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African black business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks for capital infusion. So what we are doing, the reason we do that for one per week is so that there's an optimal capital infusion, a flow of capital into one particular business. So when we starve the beast and feed the pride, when you would have spent $10 at Starbucks, or you would have spent $10 at McDonald's, or you would have spent $10 at Walmart or CVS, wasting money with the whites and their offspring, you reallocate those funds. Starve the beast and feed the pride. You reallocate that $10 to the business, organization, or institution of the week. And when you have an intensive group practicing that strategy, then you have 1,000 people practicing that strategy, then that's a $10,000 infusion of capital into the black business, organization, or institution of the week. That allows that business to expand higher within the community, serve us at a greater capacity, and so forth. Of course, it's also stripping that $10,000 away from the whites and their offspring. We have over nearly 2 million black businesses in the United States. It is suggested that there are about 2 million unemployed black people in the United States. Of course, if each black business employed one person, the unemployment problem will be solved. We can do that overnight when we support our own business. Instead of giving $950+ billion to the whites and their offspring of our income, we can reallocate billions of those dollars, stop giving it to white Koreans and white Asians and white Hispanics and white Latinos, white Arabs, white Hindus, white Europeans, white Americans at these stores. Take that money away from them and redirect it to black businesses, and they can expand overnight. They'll be able to hire somebody overnight. They have a business has a $10,000 infusion of capital in the course of 1 week. They can hire somebody the next day. If they can hire a couple of people the next day. And if we continue to infuse that capital simply by supporting those businesses, getting our products and services from our businesses instead of going to our enemies, our absolute enemies, then we can take care of our issue. If we do not do that, then by default, we are leaving those billions of dollars in the hands of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. We are therefore financing our own oppression. So this is what we deal with on Egyabosom Marketplace. And in connection with that, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show, coming up actually next weekend, October 17th, Minminada, Saturday, October 17th, we are having our first annual HOODOO MAYN, Hoodoo Nation Festival here in D.C. October 17th. It's an all-day festival, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. for Afurakani and Afuraitkaitnit people only, of course. It's a private event, but all Afurakani and Afuraitkaitnit people are invited. It's a free event. We will have vendors, a number of different vendors, handmade products, natural products, and so forth. We will be talking about Hoodoo, the Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. So we will have some presenters. We will be presenting on Hoodoo people, the Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. We're going to get into some detail about that. We're going to have some more presenters as well. We're going to have vendors, food, live vegan food, shea butter, natural soaps, natural cocoa butter, natural oils and so forth, roots, herbs, natural medicine, handmade clothing, carvings and so forth, a number of different vendors all day long. It's a family event, and we're going to place the itinerary on the website. So when we go to the website now, you will see the detailed information, you'll see the location, you'll see the flyer. You can download the flyer directly from the page. You can share that. We've also created a Hoodoo MAYN, Hoodoo Nation Festival page on Facebook. So you can go to that page. Please like that page and share that page. We have information there. We have some links to publications there. We did a broadcast, a couple of broadcasts, as a matter of fact, talking about the HOODOO MAYN Festival. You can listen to those from that link as well as on the page. So as we go along, we're going to post more information on the website. We're going to post a list of vendors on the website. We have a few spaces for vendors left, so if you would like to vend at the event, go to our HOODOO MAYN page. The vendor registration application is on the page. You can check that out. And the fee for vending is $25. We supply a 6-foot table and 2 chairs. So check that out on the HOODOO MAYN page. And we will be posting the itinerary, the list of vendors over the next couple of days, and presentations and so forth. All of that information will be placed on the site. But there's a great deal of information on the site already. So please check that out. All right, so I'll put another link in the chat room real quick. And before we get to that, just give me a second. Put the direct link to the ebook version of our book that we're going to focus on tonight, the Okraa Complex, the Soul of AKANFO. So that's the direct link we put in the chat room. We've already put the link to the page, and then we also put the link to the page for our other publications. So before we get started with that, the link to the direct page for the Okraa Complex, the Soul of AKANFO book we placed there. You will see on that page that we have the ebook version, and then we have a link where you can purchase the soft cover version. The ebook version, of course, is a free download, and then you will also see that we have that the French version of the Okraa Complex available as well. We have the French version of this book, as well as a few of our other books, and there are more coming online very soon. We're going to be posting about 5 more French versions of 5 of our other books online this week, as a matter of fact. So we have the ebook versions of all 16 of our books. All 16 books are free download. Then we have the soft cover versions that we publish ourselves. We print ourselves in-house on our own printers in color. We do sell the soft cover versions. They range from $8 to $11. Then any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. So, for example, the first 10 books in that 16-book set is $66. But any book is between $8 and $11. Most of them are about $9 or $10. One is $8, one is $11, the other ones are $9 or $10. So you can download the books immediately, but then if you like the soft cover versions, you can get those as well. And we also have a few of them in soft cover as well, in French as well, and we will have more coming online this week. Let's get into the topic for tonight, OHYE, overcoming adversity via ritual invocation. So we want to talk about, as we said in the promotional information for the show, we have the capacity to overcome adversity through invocation of our Egyabosom and Abusuabosom, patriclan and matriclan Abosom, Deities, as they're calling the Akan tradition. These divinities we inherit through our direct spiri-genetic blood circle. We thus have within our spiri-genetic makeup the capacity to overcome all adversity, as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, this capacity was encoded, written into our Okraa, the soul, the divine consciousness, pre-incarnation. We are thus born into the world with this capacity rooted in the Abosom, the deities that govern our ancestral identity. What we have dealt with in a couple of previous broadcasts, for example, Amanihunu, overcoming transcarnational suffering, transcarnational trauma. When people have very negative experiences in this lifetime, sometimes there are issues that have gone on and they are brought into this lifetime, this incarnation via bedrock, rebirth, certain old wounds that were not healed that they have brought into this incarnation. They were never healed, never aligned, never realigned fully spiritually, came into the world and they still were a magnet for certain kinds of negativity and so forth that would manifest as transcarnational suffering or trauma, something following somebody having weaker energy, a porous aura or cohibit, so to speak, because they don't have their spiritual immunity up, then their spiritual immunity is compromised to a certain degree, and then they get assaulted with the kind of negative energy and negative individuals and entities who otherwise they could easily repel, and therefore they get assaulted like that. No different than when you don't take care of yourself physically. Normally you can go outside and do your thing and bacteria is hitting you and so forth and entering into your system, and your immune system is destroying it on a regular basis, moment to moment to moment. But if you compromise your immunity because you haven't taken care of your health just on a basic level, enough sleep, diet, exercise, and so forth, then you compromise your immunity, it quote-unquote drops, and now the same bacteria that normally would be easily repelled by you now can get into your system and cause some problems. And until you do something to reverse that process, boost your immunity, destroy that bacteria, and generate that kind of immunity, that immune response that you would normally have, then you are sick, you're ill, and so forth. The same thing happens spiritually. When your spiritual immunity is weak because we are out of alignment with order to some degree, then those negative individuals, entities, or projections coming from individuals or entities that normally you could repel easy, your aura becomes porous, so to speak, and now those projections as well as those individuals can connect with you, latch onto you, and affect you in a negative fashion. And sometimes that infection is carried even when somebody makes their transition. Their spirit leaves the body, but they were depressed or anxious kind of individual. Their spirit is hanging around the place where they died, depressed and angry, just like a homeless person hanging around the place where they used to live, depressed, angry, mentally ill, and so forth, spiritually discordant. And just like they lash out at people, a homeless type spirit will lash out at individuals. At some point, that kind of spirit reincarnating, they never healed themselves. They come back into the womb, they come back into the world, and they still have that kind of open aura, porous aura, and they're a magnet for negative, lower level vibration kind of individuals, entities, and projections, just like they are operating as, and then they get assaulted consistently on a regular basis, sometimes as children, sometimes as adults, sometimes both, until spiritual work is done. So we talked about overcoming transcarnational suffering. Amanihunu, that's one of the broadcasts you can download. And all 177 plus broadcasts of our Blog Talk radio broadcast, the archives are all available on this channel. You can download them at any time. Many of them also, in addition to being on this channel, we have saved as YouTube videos and uploaded to our OHYE YouTube channel, and you can download them there as well, and you can also share them on Facebook and Google Plus and Instagram and Twitter and various forms of social media. Now, another broadcast we did in relation to that was Jo Neya, overcoming intercarnational pain and suffering. So transcarnational suffering is the kind of negative situations people experience as a result of what they have brought in incarnation. But then we talked about Jo Neya overcoming intercarnational suffering, pain and suffering and so forth, things that have taken place right here in this lifetime. We go through painful experiences, how to overcome these quote-unquote painful experiences and realign ourselves with order right here. Not something that has to do with something that happened in a previous incarnation, but things that happen day in and day out. How do we overcome these things? How do we realign ourselves? How do we move forward and not get trapped in negativity and a negative downward spiral? How do we overcome these painful experiences, things that appear to be obstacles and so forth? What is the nature of healing and so forth? So we dealt with that in Jonayal, overcoming intercarnational pain and suffering. So you can download that broadcast as well. What we're talking about now is not so much pain and suffering, but we're talking about overcoming adversity through ritual invocation. We have that capacity. When we talk about adversity, so verse meaning turn and ad meaning to or in, so it's talking about turning in, it's talking about quote-unquote conflict. We're talking about overcoming conflict, overcoming adversity. In the Akan tradition, we have the Adinkra symbol, the Nchin symbol, and the Ebe or proverb talks about life is full of twists and turns. And Nchin means the twist, the turn, the zig and zag. If you look at the symbol, there's a line going back and forth, Nchin, bending back and forth. Okraa, Nchin, life is full of twists and turns. That infers that we must learn how to adapt. We recognize the reality that Okraa, life, is full of twists and turns. Things will change. Everything will not operate in the same fashion. Things will continuously move and change. That's the reality. Once we understand that, we will not be stuck or controlled or devastated by turns of events. We recognize that changes come on a regular basis. Life is full of nchin or twists and turns, but we must learn how to adapt. When we talk about learning how to adapt, we're not just talking about adapting or just going along with whatever happens. Sometimes those twists and turns or changes in direction create conflict because we're confronted with individuals or situations that are disordered. And we don't go along with the disorder. We are spirits of order. We live in harmony with Nyamewa, Nyame, Nsheshe, divine order. So when we're confronted with disorder, we don't adapt by going along with the disorder. We eradicate the disorder. We repel the disorder. We have the capacity to do that. We don't get swamped by the disorder or make excuses for falling into disorder. That is not our nature. That is not our character. That is not who we are as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. That's the whites and offspring go along with disorder because they are spirits of disorder without Okraa. So when we talk about learning to adapt, that means learning how to live and operate in harmony with divine order no matter what twists and turns of life we must confront. When we face conflict or adversity, challenge and so forth, we have the capacity to overcome these conflicts because it is written into our nature. So we're going to go directly into the Okraa complex because we need to understand the nature of the Okraa complex, the Abosom connected to our patriclan and matriclan, our blood circles, so that we can utilize that energy ritually to overcome adversity. It is who we are. Sometimes people believe and operate off of the false belief coming from Christianity or Islam or Judaism or these fake religions with these fictional cartoon characters who never existed. Jesus, Muhammad, Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Brahman, Buddha, all of these characters never existed of any race or in any form whatsoever. We have proven that in our Cuckoos and Tune, the Ancestral Jurisdiction book. Sometimes we come from those perverse practices, and we bring the mindset of those perverse practices into ancestral religious practice without realizing. So we get involved in our ancestral religion. Sometimes we're given misinformation about our ancestral religion, and people promote it as though it's just something that you can join, and it's a congregation you join and just do what other people are doing and imitate what other people are doing ritually, and whenever people say, you just do it, and you do a few little rituals and things happen as though it's just something to join. It's a congregation. And of course, that's not true, and this is why we have these broadcasts, to bring about real information. You don't join an ancestral religious practice. You are born with an ancestral religious practice, and this is why we focus on moja, blood. We talk about our blood circles, our ancestral blood circles, spiri-genetic blood circles. Incarnating into the womb. When we incarnate into the womb, we were already assigned to specific Abosom forces in nature and ancestral clans before our spirits even got inside the womb. We come into the world, in fact, we come into the womb already assigned to divinities and a specific culture, and then we're born into the world already assigned. So we don't need to go join a culture. You can't join an ancestral religious culture. You can't join the Yoruba tradition if you're not Yoruba. In reality, you have a lot of people who are, quote unquote, doing that, but all they're doing are operating in a fashion that is nonsensical. It's self-destructive, because if they are not Yoruba, they're really not involved in a real culture. They're just imitating someone else. They're no different than someone, and the same thing with our Akan tradition of Odun or whatever. If you're not Akan, or if you're not Fon or Ebe, or if you're not Yoruba, and you're trying to operate within these ritual practices, you're no different than somebody putting on some scuba gear and getting an oxygen tank and swimming around and pretending like they're part of the school of fish. They're operating in the same area, but they are not fish. And it's nonsensical. They're not being, if they stay down there, they're not going to be nourished properly, they're not going to function properly, and eventually it's going to lead to their own demise. We are born into a culture. We incarnate with the culture. So we find out what our ancestral culture is and reincorporate those practices within our own lives. That's how we practice ancestral religion. We don't go look around for a culture and just join something because some misguided priest or priestess or pseudo-elder says, hey, you can join, or hey, I did divination, hey, you can join, I'm going to give you a Yoruba name or an Akan name or a Vodou name, and come on and join. Which many of the people here do that in the Western Hemisphere, but there are many of the Negroes on the continent who are criminal types. They do that as well because they would like to exploit you for your money and exercise influence. We don't just join a tradition, but we sometimes have that mindset. And we come in with that mindset and we just join up with something, or even if people are naturally connected with the specific ethnic group that they are part of, whether they do that consciously or unconsciously, their Nsamanfo guide them to the right place. So they always had a strong draw towards kente cloth or Adinkra symbols or Akua badals and so forth. They were drawn to the Akan tradition, and then they find out later spiritually, strongly from their Nsamanfo, the reason they always love these things because, and naturally drawn to them, is because ancestrally they are Akan. The last time they were living in the world, hundreds of years ago, they were living as an Akan person through reincarnation, through their direct blood circles, even though our people were mixed up on boats and on plantations and so forth over hundreds of years. When our spirits return through the womb, we have the exact same Akan spirits or Yoruba spirits or Igbo spirits and so forth who have returned through that womb. And even though the blood has been mixed, as we say, the soul has not been mixed. But we may come out lighter brown through this incarnation because of all the violence and blood mixture over the past couple of hundred years, but with the same spirit that has returned. If you're an Akan spirit, you return as an Akan spirit. If you're an Igbo spirit, you come back into the world, you're an Igbo individual. If you're a Yoruba spirit returning, you're a Yoruba person when you come through. It matters not that your blood has been mixed. As long as you have an Okra, a soul, a divine consciousness connected to your Sunsum, your spirit. Number one, you are Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, and number two, you are still connected to that specific ancestral blood circle. So, some of us naturally find out or are drawn to, consciously or unconsciously, to the group that we are from. Some of our people are still working to find that out, and you can find that out directly from your own people, your own Nsamanfo, your own ancestresses and ancestors. But once they begin to engage some ritual practice, Sometimes they will bring other ideas that are not real, but they come from white culture. They blacken up those white ideas. Of course, we talk about misinformation about monotheism, which is idiotic, the foolish idea, product of the culture of the whites and their offspring, because they cannot align with the great mother or the great father, so they manufacture the foolish idea of monotheism to control the population of our people, to make us believe that there are no deities, that we should not be communicating with any deities that govern our heads and our clans. We should only follow their fake invisible deity or their fake white deity, their fake homosexual deity. So things like that corrupt the culture. We also have individuals who will come into the culture and believe that nothing should ever go wrong, or they should never have any conflict whatsoever in their lives. And if they ever come in, contact with some form of conflict, then somebody can sway them and say, well, you must not be, that African religion you practice must not be real because you're having some kind of conflict or you went through some kind of thing, which is idiotic. OHYE, we say life is full of twists and turns, but we learn how to adapt because we have a culture. We learn how to restore order. It's just like someone saying, you must not know anything about medicine because someone somewhere in the community gets sick. The whole point of learning medicine is so that when something like that happens, we have a means by which we can extract medicinal value from plant life, mineral life, and so forth, and bring balance back to someone. So there are many foolish things that people come up with. They'll say, well, someone got sick, that means they're not involved in the culture. That culture is fake. But when you look at the vast majority of people who are sick, for example, if you go into, we use the example of someone in a cancer ward and so forth. They were diagnosed with cancer, some form of cancer, someone involved in ancestral religion. Then the parent says, well, it's that African religion they're involved in because if they were, following Christ and so forth, that would have never happened to them. But then we ask the parent in the hospital, when you look at this cancer ward that you're in, and the cancer wards all across the country, in all the hospitals across the country, if you were to ask every single person in the cancer ward, what is your religion? 99.9% of them would say Christianity. So if the criteria is that if you get cancer, that must mean that your religion is fake, then you should be admitting that Christianity is fake, because most people who have cancer are Christian. Most people in the hospital aren't saying, hey, I practice the Yoruba tradition. The vast majority of the people who are coming down with cancer are not people practicing ancestral religion. So people throw those things out. But when you reverse them on them, that's foolish logic on them, then they have to see that what they're saying is ridiculous. And sometimes our people get caught up. So if they go through some pain, go through some suffering, we talked about transcarnational suffering, so we can see where does that suffering really come from. So people aren't easily swayed to believe that, it must be because you're practicing ancestral religion. When in reality, Jesus never existed. Moses never existed. Muhammad never existed. So none of those religions are helping anyone because those characters never existed. It's no different than Santa Claus. So we're doing the real thing, but we have real mechanisms within our culture to solve all of our problems, but most people have not been introduced to those things. So when adversity shows up, pain shows up, suffering shows up, trauma shows up, immediately people start to panic and say, I must be practicing the ancestral religion, that must be the issue. Or I must not be doing the ritual right, or something like that. Nonsense. Another piece is people believe that if they're just nice, if they're practicing ancestral religion, if they're just nice and they don't bother anybody and they're quote-unquote obedient and not trying to engage in disorder, as long as they're nice, then everything should go well for them all of the time. And then if things go well and they come in conflict with adversity and so forth, then the first thing they say is, well, I'm very nice. I try to do what the Nsamanfo say. I try not to go against what the Nsamanfo say or go against the Abosom or Nyamewa, Nyame, and so forth. I've been very nice. Why is this happening to me? Why am I being punished? Why are they not answering me, and so forth? We recognize in reality that there's a parent-child, grandparent-grandchild relationship with regard to the great mother and the great father. The great mother, great father, the supreme being. Of course, that's a parent-child, grandparent-grandchild relationship. Just like we are cells within the great divine body, just like your cells of your liver, they're children of the liver and they're grandchildren of the greater body. So there is a hierarchical relationship, and that's a reality. But it's not the same sense of if you're a child, when you're a little kid, as long as you're nice, then your parents do everything for you as a baby. If you act up, you may get punished or spanked or something like that. But once you get back to acting nice, then they take care of everything for the child, take care of everything for the baby. And even if the baby is acting bad, they're still going to take care of the child. But we take that mindset into ancestral religious practice because we get some of that from the corrupt pseudo-religions of Christianity, Islam, and so forth, that if you're obedient to their fake God, then you'll be blessed. But if something goes wrong, then there's a problem. You're not being obedient, and you get scared, and you get chastised, and get punished, or you may go to hell and all this other nonsense. The problem is we bring that kind of misinformed mindset to ancestral religion. So if we're faced with adversity, we think adversity in and of itself is evidence that we're not practicing ancestral religion correctly, or that maybe ancestral religion is not, quote unquote, working for me. Maybe I need to try something else. That's like saying the sun is not working for me, I need to try something else. Or water is not working for me, I need to try something else. Or the atmosphere is not working for me, I need to try something else. Or the earth mother is not working for me, I need to try something else. That is insane. The reality is the same sun, moon, black substance of space, earth mother, ocean, atmosphere, rivers, thunder, lightning, magnetosphere, those same elements and aspects of creation that have been existing for millions of years and impacting us for millions of years. We are totally part of that system. We can't step outside of that system. And the spirits that animate all of these various aspects of creation, we are part of that system as well, and we can't step outside of that system. There's no such thing as, well, I'm going to try something else. You can't step outside of this universe and try something else. You can't step outside of the planet Earth and try something else. You can't step outside of ancestral religion in reality and try anything else. What you're doing is neglecting your own responsibility. It's like somebody pretending like the sun doesn't exist, or they just stay inside of the house, block themselves from the sun and stuff. Or they don't drink any water, decide they're not going to breathe or something like that. I mean, whatever it is, you can deny yourself that connection you already have, but in reality, you are in the midst of creation, and the forces of nature are around us and impact us. And our ancestors are connected to us by our blood circles. That is, we are part of a system. A belief that we're not part of a system means nothing. At the end of the day, you're still part of a system. Our culture is aligning and realigning our thoughts, intentions, and actions with order. And when we talk about aligning our thoughts, intentions, and actions with order, we're talking about engaging that process, not simply sitting back and hoping things will work out fine simply because, well, I've been good. I've been a nice person, so therefore everything should just simply work out. A baby can be a nice baby, but at some point they have to engage the mother to draw the milk out of the breast, or else they're not going to get nourished. They have to engage and move forward, and if the baby is not suckling properly, the mother will try to help them suckle so that the baby can pull the nourishment out of the mother that she has to give the child, but the child must pull. And the same thing happens with us. We must pull the nourishment. We must engage the process. We engage in ritual practice. We engage in ritual invocation or provocation of the Abosom that are connected to our blood circle, because we are part of that system. We have their energy moving through our body. We must utilize that energy. Someone can be a nice person, but if they're just sitting down and never getting up out of the chair to move, nothing is going to happen for them. They say, well, I don't understand why nothing is happening for me. And they sit down for 15 hours a day and never get out the chair, and then they go to sleep. They're like a paraplegic, but they're really not a paraplegic. They're wondering why nothing is happening in their life. And then when you ask them, well, what's going on? Well, nothing is happening for me. It seems like, I'm not making any progress, but I'm really a nice person, and I try not to make any mistakes, and I try not to follow any lusts or get controlled by, criminality and things like that. I try to obey the Samafo. I try not to do things that I'm not supposed to do, but things are not working out, but they never get out of the chair. So we must engage. We must provoke the energy that circulates within us, that is connected directly to the Abosom of our blood circle. So this is what we want to deal with. Adversity or conflict, or sometimes the things that we perceive as conflict, life is twist and turn. So we engage the process, and when we engage the process harmoniously, then we can overcome adversity, or we can avoid so-called adversity. But it's not true that adversity will never come. It is not true that adversity is in and of itself evidence that ancestral religion is not real. That's insane. That's like saying, again, that the sun, moon, earth, oceans, and so forth are not real because you had a conflict with somebody or something. That's insanity. That's what the whites and their offspring would like to program us to believe. Of course, when we get forced and involved in their fake religions, every time anything comes up that proves that their fake deity doesn't exist, they have all kinds of excuses. God works in mysterious ways. Oh, this is just a test. All this other nonsense. They have all kinds of ways to gloss what's really happened. But when it comes to our culture, they try to make us believe that anything that pops up in our lives, any situation that manifests, if it's a negative situation, they always try to take you back to, oh, well, it must be that religion you're practicing. You need to get away from that devil worship and come back to worshiping this white homosexual faggot cracker Jesus who never existed. That's what you really should be doing. If you don't do that, or this fake white homosexual Arab Muhammad who never existed, pedophiles, rapists that they worship, you need to be following that. Or some cartoon character, Yahweh, who never existed, and so forth. So we want to get into specifically how do we overcome that adversity through ritual invocation, and it is written into our nation. This is why we're going to talk about the Egyabosom and Abusuabosom, the patriclan divinities, matriclan divinities that we are connected to. So let's look at the book Okra Complex, the Soul of AKANFO. And we're going to go to page, we're going to go to page 27 and 28. And that 27 and 28 is up under the section of She and Shebia, which actually begins on page 24. Page 24 real quick. On the Okra complex, the soul of AKANFO. Now, this whole book is about the nature of the soul. In ancient Kemet, the soul is called the Ka, that's the male name, Kaet, or Ka is the female name. In Akan, Ka is called Kra, and the female Ka, or Kaet is called Kra, or Krawa, Kra with two A's, Okra, sometimes prefixed with the Okra, with two A's, or Okrawa, and then the male is Okra, or Okra, with one A. And the root, of course, is Ka, Ra, Kara, becomes truncated into Kra, and so forth. So, the soul is a deity dwelling in the head region. It is a divinity assigned to us by the Supreme Being. So before your spirit is sent into the womb of your mother, your Sunsum, your spirit is drawn to Inyamewa, and Inyame, the great mother and the great father of the Supreme Being. They direct a specific deity, one of their great grandchildren and so forth, to go and dwell with you in your head region, to take up residence and install itself in your head region to guide you throughout the course of your life. So male divinity if you're a male, or female divinity if you're a female. So that force in nature takes up residence in the head region of your sum, of your spirit. Just like your physical body has a smaller physical body, an organ, an entity in the head region, which regulates all the functions in the physical body. That is the brain, of course. In your spirit body, in the head region of your spirit body, you have an entity, a force in nature. It is your spirit's brain. It is an entity that was sent, directed to come dwell in the head region of your spirit, and it moves and installs itself, attaches itself to your head region of your spirit body, and that is your Okraa. Your Okraa is called Ori-Inu in the Yoruba tradition, Sevido and Vodun and Chi and Igbo and so forth. It is the Ka, the Kayat and Ancient Kemet, a deity that we communicate with. You feel it as a force pulling you in your head towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with divine order every moment of every day when you are aligned with it. And it is up to us to align with that pull. And that pull becomes more pronounced, more detailed, more nuanced, to the extent that you can see that male divinity or female divinity and communicate directly with that force in nature, just like you can communicate with that ancestral spirit or another divinity. So that force in nature pulls you constantly throughout the course of your life. Wired within that spirit's brain is similar to a structure or fourfold structure you find in the physical brain. And this is why we have the image on page 28 of the physical brain, the fourfold structure or division of the physical brain. The cerebral cortex with its two hemispheres, left and right, the cerebellum with its two hemispheres, the left and right. And you can look at that same fourfold structure and division of the Okra, the soul, the divine consciousness, the left and right hemispheres of the cerebral cortex of the Okra is the Okraa and Okrabia, your divine function, the male and female aspects of your divine function, what you came into the world to execute. What kind of cell are you within the great divine body? If you're an immune system cell, then you will be naturally drawn to execute immune system functions within society, within your community, military functions, martial functions, and so forth, policing functions naturally and so forth. If you are a healing type cell, then you're naturally drawn to healing practice. Whatever kind of cell you are in the great divine body that is wired within the Okrabia, the left and right hemispheres of the cerebral cortex, not just of the brain, but also the spirit's brain, which we call the Okraa and Okrabia, the male and female aspects of that divine function or mission, so-called destiny or life focus, what you are to execute in creation. Then you have the right and left hemispheres of the cerebellum. On the physical side, the cerebellum governs motor movement and so forth, coordination, equilibrium, power, those kinds of things. When you look at the spirit aspect of that, the quote-unquote cerebellum, we're talking about the She and the Shebia. So let's get into that real quick. In fact, go back to page 24, and then we're going to come back. We titled the broadcast today, She. So in the middle of page 24, you will see the Akan term She is a verb meaning to fix, arrange, to compel. The noun version of the term, She, means the act of fixing compulsion. She as a verb also has the meaning to set, appoint, and is sometimes defined to predestine, predestinate, to command, to charge, to compel, to force, to impel, to urge. And so we show the definitions for that. And then the next piece we're talking about forcing, fixing, arranging, compulsion, all of that. We have She, which is the male term, She, Bia, which is the female aspect of that. Force, fixing, arranging, compulsion, masculine and feminine aspect of that spiritual energy. Now, of compulsion, forcing, fixing, impulsion, and so forth. So let's go down to page 25 real quick, and we just show those. The reason we show those entries from the dictionary, because later on in the text we show the exact same term, She and Shayet and Ancient Kemet which mean the exact same thing, because the same words in Akan, she, as well as shebia, you'll find she or shayet in ancient Kemet, meaning to fix, to arrange, to predestine, predestinate, to compel, impel, and all of that same term. And then shayet with the T is the feminizing of the noun in ancient Kemet. Bea is the feminizing of the noun in Akan. So she is the root. Shayet or shayet in ancient Kemet is the feminine aspect. Shai or she is the male. In Akan, shai or she is the masculine aspect. Instead of shayet is she. Bea, which is the female, same thing. So this is why we show the entries here, because we later show the Medusa, the hieroglyphs, with the same term. Okay, the individual Sun Sum, the spirit of the person, after we are given our Okraa, encoded within the Okraa, within the left and right hemispheres of the Okraa, of the cerebral cortex, is the Okraa and Encravia, your divine function. What are you to execute in creation? What is your life focus? Just like wired in the synapses of your cerebral cortex is your cognition, the cognitive part of your brain and so forth, the things that you're supposed to do and all the different things that should happen within your body with regard to the cells and the glands and everything else. That's all wired in the cerebral cortex. Spiritually, in the spirit brain, what is your divine function? That is, the left hemisphere is the Okraa, the right hemisphere is the Encravia. Those are the male and female aspects of that divine function. Then you have the she and shebia, where the cerebellum is. The right and left hemispheres is the cerebellum. And it's dealing with a specific configuration of spiritual energy. So the individual Sun Sum spirit is, after we're given our divine function, the Okraa and Encravia, individual Sun Sum spirit is subsequently given the spiritual capacity, specific configuration of spiritual energy necessary for the individual to be able to execute the divinely allotted function he or she has been tasked with. The individual Sun Sum is given the power to execute a specific configuration of spiritual energy related to Abosom, deities, connected to his or her ancestry, as well as the manner in which to exercise this configuration of energy. This is the domain of She and Shebia. So this is why we want to deal with that point and define that, because our capacity to overcome adversity based on who we are, specific clans we come from, and our specific capacity, our spiri-genetic DNA and so forth, how we are to navigate our way through these things, and the power we have to execute is rooted in our She and Shebia. So it's not enough to know what your function is. You must execute. You have the power to execute, and that is the invocation of the energy that you've been given. At first, we begin to study things, learn things, know things, understand things, reject faith, religion, and so forth, get involved in ancestral culture, establish an ancestral shrine, pour libation, and so forth, engage in certain ritual practices, and we begin to learn a great deal of things. We begin to see a number of things, begin to understand things much better. We start seeing through all the nonsense. We recognize that fake religions are nonsensical. We recognize those fake deities never existed. We recognize how our people have been lied to. We start incorporating information that we have been given, that we hear from the Abosom or feel from the Abosom and Insumanfo and other people who are engaged in the culture. We start incorporating all these various things into our lives, and our lives begin to change, all based on knowing and learning, cognition, and so forth. But it's one thing to know various things and also remember things, and sometimes, putting certain things into place. But then we must begin to execute. We must tap into the power that we have been given through our ancestral Abosom, unleash that power so we can execute our function in creation and overcome adversity. Sometimes we get stuck in the wonderment of knowing the truth about things, and that sometimes is just good enough for people to run with that for the next few months or even some years, some people. They're just so glad to know the truth about different things and have changed a few things, like changed their name, changed their diet, changed their relationships, and so forth, or left a relationship and got involved with another one, somebody who's studying the same kind of information. And that in and of itself is enough to totally transform people's lives. And sometimes they just stay on that track of, taking in more and more information because it's very fulfilling. But then at some point, it's time to execute your specific function. And sometimes you're met with adversity. And then if you don't know how to overcome adversity, if you don't have any guidance, then you run into what you think is a roadblock or an obstacle, because you were focused so much on just incorporating new information or accurate information, but you weren't focused on the ritual practice of executing and engaging the She and Shebi. Scroll down real quick. So that was on page 24. Let's scroll down, and we just have some more, linguistic stuff there. And then we also show on page 25, again, we show the Medutu, proving that those terms are the same in our ancestral language and so forth. So, as we say, as in the example cited above, one may have the Nkrabia, which dictates that they are to be a healer, one who brings balance when imbalance arises. What kind of healer? If the individual's Nkrabia encoded within his or her Okra mandates that he or she is to utilize the energy of Abosom of fire to heal, and Nyame assigns the individual to and aligns the individual with Abosom or deities of fire, such as Abosom of the Oria, the sun, or Osurana, lightning, if the individual's Nkrabia or function encoded within him or her mandates that he or she is to heal through a watery or a cool medium. That's the divine function. That's your Nkrabia. Then Nyame, the Supreme Being, the Great Mother and Great Father, assigns the individual to and aligns the individual with Abosom or deities of water, such as Abosom or deities of the Opo, the ocean, or a certain Asio, a river. The individual's Okra, the soul, the Sum, spirit, and entire being will be affected by the Abosom, the deities with whom he or she is aligned. He or she will therefore naturally manifest physical characteristics, morphology, metabolism, etc., and the personality and temperament reflective of the energy and character of those Abosom, those deities. This occurs in the same fashion as an individual who has a very similar facial and bodily characteristics of his father, as well as his personality and temperament. Just as we are genetically related to our parents, we, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit only, are spiri-genetically related to the Abosom, whose energy is infused within us by Nyame. So, for example, if you were to be a healer, that's your divine function, encoded within your spirit's brain, your cries, you're to be a healer. You're naturally inclined towards healing, restoring balance, restoring order to our people. But what kind of healer? That's the first definition is, that's what your function is, but it has to be further defined, further nuanced. Okay, you're a healer as opposed to a military type person, a defender. You're a healer. Now that you know you're in the camp of healing, what kind of healing? Further nuance. Are you healing through fire? Are you healing through water? Are you laying hands to send some energy through people to heal? Or are you using watery medium to heal and so forth? What kind of healer? That is determined by the Abosom that are assigned to you. Whatever function you are given, specific Abosom with that kind of energy are assigned to you. So if you have a fiery function with regard to healing, then you are assigned to Abosom of fire, sun, and Surane, lightning, and so forth, and they're connected to you. And you will invoke those Abosom to assist you in your healing practice and utilize that energy so that you can heal. If it's a watery medium, then watery Abosom and so forth will be assigned to them. So that's further nuanced information. Some of us get stuck on the reality that we find out our function is healing. We're connected to Abosom of healing. We're connected to some watery divinity, some female water Abosom. And then the people are very glad to learn that. Then they realize all throughout their life or their lives, they were drawn towards healing. They were drawn towards water and rivers and so forth. They always felt the energy when they went there and so forth, and it all makes sense. And then they begin to learn about the nature of certain water divinities and what their names are and what their stories are, and they get all that information. They may get some images of them and place them on a shrine or place them around the house and so forth, and just learn as much as they can. The more they learn, the more fulfilled they are. Some people stop right there because that's enough to go on for years as far as they're concerned. But at some point you have to move further, and actually that's the Okraa and Okraa part, learning what your function is and all the nuances of what that function is and what you need to do, what you don't need to do, how you need to do it, and when you need to do it, and where you need to do it, and so forth. All of that is wired within your Okraa and Okraa. So then you need to get to the She and Shebia, invoking the energy of the Abosom that are assigned to you so you can affect that healing practice. It's not enough to know that that's the kind of spirit you have and the kind of energy you have, and you take on a name connected with that. You have to engage the healing process. You got to heal some people now. Now you have to utilize your energy. The same is true when you're learning about things in general, culturally, spiritually, but then you come in contact with adversity. Now you have to exercise and tap into the energy you've been given through your blood circle so you can overcome that adversity, overcome that conflict, move through that conflict. So now we're going to get into the individual She and Shebia. So we talked about the Okraa and Okraa, what you know or learn about your divine function. The individual She and Shebia, remember, She means to compel, before even the energy of saying it. Okraa and Okraa is about knowing. That energy is about knowing and tuning into that energy. The Okraa is about knowing what's within your head. But the She and Shebia is the power of impulsion and compulsion. Even saying the term She, you're putting some power behind it. You're releasing some energy. You're compelling and impelling, making something happen. So the individual She and Shebia affords him or her the ability, the capacity to employ a configuration of energy, be it fiery or watery or earth, air, whatever it is. She, force, compel, command, to employ that configuration of energy, yet he or she is also given the ability, the capacity to employ this energy complex in a certain manner. Bea means it's female, but it also means a way or a manner. So She is a specific function. Shebia is the manner in which you execute that capacity, that energy. She is the compulsion, the power of compulsion. Shebia is the manner in which it manifests and is used. The individual must utilize the energy complex derived from the Abosom in a manner that allows him or her to heal, yet not create disorder in abodie creation within him or herself or in the process. The energy complex must only be used to support the individual's Okraa and Okraa, his or her divine function. If the individual attempts to misuse the energy he or she is given, if you're given energy, if you have the fiery energy of a bosom of fire, and you're a fiery individual and you should be using that fiery energy to heal, or if you're a military type person, use that fire to kill our enemies, not kill each other, but kill the enemy, then you're using that fire properly, or using it to heal. You're laying hands and sending hot energy through your hands to burn up impurities and destroy bacteria and so forth and heal people, then you're wielding that energy properly. If the person seeks to utilize that energy they have been given out of harmony with divine order, to misuse the energy he or she is given, the Abosom will not allow it. The Abosom will shut down the energy complex and disengage from the individual. It's like someone gets possessed, the spirit enters the body, then the spirit leaves the body. Someone takes in a deep breath, you pull in air, but then when you blow out, the air leaves the lung. The Abosom will move through you. They're connected to you. You have an energy connection to them. It's like when you take a deep breath, the air in your lungs through your trachea is connected to the air outside. And through your, through your nasal cavity and so forth, through the air outside. But if you close it off, put your hands over your nose and mouth and so forth, now the air inside of you is cut off from the air outside. There's no direct link anymore. And if you keep it close, of course, you will suffocate, you'll pass out. When you engage in disorder, you make yourself repulsive to the Abosom. They cut themselves off, and that direct energetic link that they have with you, their energy coming directly to your body, connecting with their pocket of energy within you that's constantly renewing itself in a feedback system. They cut themselves off from you. They separate themselves from you when you engage in disorder deliberately. And now the only energy you have is the little residual energy that was left over, a little residual electromagnetic energy still circulating through your body that will eventually dissipate. But it's no longer connected to the living source of energy that was streaming from the Abosom, say the Abosom animating the sun and so forth. So you cut yourself off. So you can't misuse divine energy. And we talked about that when we talked about spiritual power and psychic power and so forth. You can't misuse tuning or the divine energy of the Abosom, because as soon as you seek to do so, the Abosom withdraw from you. So now you no longer have a direct connection to their energy. So we have the capacity to wield the energy within us. We have a natural capacity to wield that energy, open it up, turn it on, arouse the fiery energy within us, or the cool, healing, magnetic energy within us. We have a natural capacity and inclination to open that energy up and utilize it. That natural capacity, that natural inclination, that natural force of compulsion and impulsion to open up the energy of the Abosom is the She and the Shebia. And so the next piece is we show simply the Medutu, the hieroglyphs for that. We don't have to go through that. Scroll down through that, and we talk about the reason why they'll define She and Shayat in ancient Kemet, not only with impulsion and to fix and to a point, but it also talks about property and goods and possessions, that which you possess, that your worth, your value, that's defined by the energy that is wired within you, that configuration of energy that's unique to you, coming from patriclan and matriclan divinities and your own Okraa, that triangular structure of energy that's unique to you. That is your value, that is your worth, because that's what determines who you are in the world. So we're going into some detail about that on that page, on page 26. So we can scroll through that. We want to get to the major piece here, down to page 27. In the middle of page 27, you see the image of the Ba bird, and we did a broadcast on that. So we talked about you have a Okraa, a soul of divine consciousness, a divinity dwelling in the head region, just like your spirit's brain, leading your thoughts, intentions, and actions toward divine order every moment of every day, how you should be functioning in a harmonious fashion in the world, what you should know, what you should incorporate, what you should reject, what you should accept, be in law with or love with, what you should reject, repel, what you should hate. So you can function harmoniously in thoughts, intentions, and actions. That is your Okraa, your soul, your divine consciousness, the spirit's brain. Then you also have the Ba, the life energy circulating throughout your system. Just like you have blood circulating throughout your body, and the blood carries life force energy, that divine living energy circulating throughout every cell of your body. It's the Ba, or the Bayat, called Bara in Akan, the divine living energy, portion of the energy of Ra and Ra'at, the creator and creatress that animates all created entities, naturally created entities. A portion of their divine living energy is circulating throughout our bodies. That is our Ba, our Bayat. It is our energetic connection to all of the other forces in creation. Just like you have sunlight that's shining on all the naturally created entities on Earth. And once the sun shines on plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afuraitkaini, human life, and fills us up with heat and energy and so forth, and we're all bathed with that heat, but we're filled up with that energy. In the same fashion, the divine living energy of Ra and Ra'at permeates creation, gets inside of our bodies, enlivens us, animates us, motivates us. It's in plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afuraitkaini, human life, of course, only that divine living energy. That is our Ba and Bayat. That little portion that's within us is our own Ba and Bayat. It's a human-headed bird with, wings flying, that energy that advances and circulates and flies throughout our system and so forth. We have the capacity to move that energy throughout our system. When people engage in ritual drumming, ritual dance, so forth, they're moving that life energy through their system and so forth. So, we say the Ba spirit in the form of a human-headed bird. We go through some information. The living spirit, conscious living spirit entity which animates us, like the solar fire or heat within our bodies, which permeates our entire being and radiates from us. When the Ka and Ba, the Ka'et and Ba'et unite, it is the union of the soul and the divine life spirit. The Ba and Ba'et carry the energy of the creator and creatress. We call them a Yonkompon and a Yonkompon and Akan, descriptive titles of Ra and Ra'et. It is the radiant life energy of the Ba and Ba'et, which allows us to consciously and energetically link to the Abosom and all of creation. And it activates our inherited energy complex. So that solar energy, life force energy circulating throughout our entire being. It gives us the power to move and walk around and think and everything else. It also activates that energy complex that's wired within us. The She and Shebia. Now, so let's go further down. Now we get into the cosmological aspect. Inyame wa Inyame, the great mother, great father, speak Okraa and Krabia to us prior to our incarnation. They direct the Abosom Kai to send one of their offspring to dwell with us. So we've already talked about the Supreme Being directing a deity, go into that person's head region and sit in there and take up residence there and guide them throughout their lives. So when we're born into the world, we have a guide, a divinity in our head region guiding us throughout the course of our lives. Spirituality is about aligning with that force, because inside that Ka, that Kayat, is the divine function we are to execute, as well as the energy we've been given to execute that function. So we talked about that. Our Abosom they send becomes our personal Ka or Kayat, our personal Kra or Krawa. Inyame wa Inyame then gives us the capacity to execute our Okraa and Krabia. This capacity is our She, our Shebia, our motive force of compulsion. The particular manner in which we utilize our Shebia is fixed by Inyame wa Inyame. They appoint certain Abosom to us who carry the requisite energy necessary for us to function according to our Okraa and Krabia, our allotted function or destiny. And so we go into that. So go to the next page. So we say that Okraa and Krabia is our consciousness of our divine function. The cerebral cortex. How we fit into the reality of creation. We exercise this consciousness to operate in the world. We attune to our Okraa and Krabia, our divine function, in order to know the nature of our function. We are to execute in the world and the manner in which we must execute that function in any given moment and within any given situation in a harmonious fashion. What kind of cell are we? That comes from, that's wired within our Okraa and Krabia. If you attune to your Kra, the divinity in your head region, and you find out I'm a fiery cell, and I'm a healer, but I'm going to heal with fire and so forth, but I'm a healer, that's my function. When you attune to your Kra and realize that's your function, you've been drawn towards that kind of function all your life. When you attune to your own Kra, your Okraa and Krabia, the male and female aspects of your Kra, your divine function, is telling you you are a healer. That is your Okraa, your Krabia. And there are specific things that are acceptable. There are specific things that are objectionable that you should not engage in, that are taboo for you, HOYE. There are other things that are acceptable. And you learn those things after you learn about what your function is. Now you know you're a healer as opposed to being a defender or engineer or whatever. Now you know your function, your Okraa and Krabia, and the manner in which you must execute that function. Then the next piece is, we get to the cerebellum, our She and Shebia is our motive force. It is our impulsion and compulsion to wield our appointed energy complex in order to properly operate in the world, meaning according to the dictates of our Okraa and Krabia. We attune to our She and Shebia in order to know the nature of the resources we have, which is our spirit energy complex, and the manner in which we must utilize that energy complex in any given moment and within any given situation in a harmonious fashion. Now, what we say is you're given a function to execute, so first you must learn what that is. But you're not just given a blueprint. You're also then given the energy so that you can execute that function. If you're to be a healer, then you need to be given the kind of energy you can use to actually heal somebody. If you are a fighter, defender, if that's your function, you learn that, you attune to your Okraa, you find out, oh, I'm a defender. But you also have to have the energy, the kind of fire energy you need so that you can defend. So you're not just given a blueprint or given orders by the Supreme Being, you're also assigned Abosom deities that have the capacity that will allow you to support that function you've been given. So you're given the blueprint of what you're to do, and you're given a specific configuration of energy that will allow you to execute what you're supposed to do. You're given both. The cerebral cortex is the function and the manner in which to execute that function, and the cerebellum is the energy complex that you utilize, that force of compulsion you utilize to wield and open and close that energy you've been given so you can execute that function. You have the blueprint and you have the power to execute the blueprint. You have the Okraa and Ankrabia, the blueprint, and you have the She and Shebia, the force of compulsion and impulsion to execute the blueprint. All right. And so in the next piece, we just show the image of the brain, the fourfold division of the brain, and show an image where we can show the Okraa and Ankrabia, She and Shebia. We're showing the brain from the back, of course. So on the left side, cerebral cortex, Okraa, the right side, Ankrabia, left side, and the cerebellum is Oshe. Right side is the Shebia. And we're talking about the balance of two halves of the whole. Now, scroll down and we're going to get down to page 29. And we go into a little bit more detail talking about the deities, Ka and Kayat, and Shai and Shayat, and so forth. And you can check that out. We just wanted to get to the point specifically in this section, then we're going to jump to the next section. But we just wanted to show that piece dealing with the She and Shebia and the difference between the She and Shebia and the Okraa and Ankrabia. Okay, so see with that, just want to show you that specific link. All right, so our consciousness and energy capacity is thus kindled and brought forward to the surface of our awareness. We then understand what we are to accomplish and how we are to accomplish, what our value energy capacity is, and how to execute or wield that energy towards the fulfillment of our objectives. This is how we operationalize our destiny, how we execute our divinely allotted function. So you learn what your function is, and it is brought forward to the surface of your awareness by attuning to your Okraa. Then you understand what you are to accomplish and how you are to accomplish, what your value or your energy, your capacity is, and how to wield that energy. Learning what your function is Okraa and Ankrabia, and the manner in which you must execute that function, that's all fire within the Okraa and Ankrabia. What your energetic capacity is, what kind of spiritual energy you've been given, whether it's fire or water or whatever it is, the nature of that energy complex you've been given, and how to wield that energy you've been given so that you can support what's in your Okraa and Ankrabia. That's the She and Shebia. We just want to make that clear. We want to reiterate that. So now that we have an understanding of that, in the Akan tradition, the nature of that energy complex that you've been given to execute your function in creation comes through the patriclan and matriclan. We're talking about the patriclan and matriclan of our original clans even before we were forced into the Western Hemisphere. This is not the first time you have lived. If you were living as an Akan in the so-called 1800s in Ghana and so forth, part of a patriclan, part of a matriclan, connected to a patriclan divinity in Egyabosom, a matriclan divinity in Abusuabosom, and so forth. Those energies were connected to you. Those Abosom were connected to you. You were forced into North America during enslavement and forced to have children and breed and everything else, and ended up dying and so forth. And your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they keep developing generation after generation, and you're watching as an ancestor as that's happening over the next couple of hundred years. At some point, you're drawn into the womb of one of your descendants, and 200 years later, you're born back into the world. Even though there was blood mixture throughout those 200 years in America, you are the exact same Akan spirit that lives on the continent, connected to a specific patriclan, a specific matriclan. The same patriclan Abosom, or Egyabosom as we call it, and the same Abusuabosom or Bosom, matriclan Abosom, matriclan divinity you were connected to then, are the same that will follow you through into this incarnation now. So the blood mixture, once again, will not affect that, because these Abosom are assigned to you before you even get into the womb, before blood is dealt with. So you come back into the world and you find out who this patriclan and matriclan Abosom are. Now, they have specific characteristics, just like your father and your mother have their DNA. The Y chromosomal DNA from the father and the mitochondrial DNA from the mother have their own characteristics. And when they are blended, they create a new being, which is you, whose physiological structure never existed before. The blending of your mother and father, putting that together, that goes into the making of your physiological structure. Some DNA from the father, some DNA from the mother. When they blend, you have a specific characteristic. You have morphological characteristics from the father that can be seen, and some from the mother that can be seen, and certain temperaments and so forth, because of what you receive directly from them. The spiritual force that animates the ovum cell. This is the patriclan Abosom on the father's side, the matriclan Abosom on the mother's side. Even because of the musuokesi, the great perversity, the enslavement era. Remember, these Abosom follow you even when you're in the spirit realm. So they're going to follow you no matter what womb you come through. So if it's one of your descendants is a male descendant, and he copulates with a criminal deceased or a criminal cracker being brainwashed and draws your spirit through, forcing you to have a white mother and so forth, a so-called mother that's really not your mother. This is some alien that he connected with. You were an ancestor. You tried to stop him from engaging with this criminal cracker. He copulated with the crack anyway and drew you into that perverse womb, and therefore forced you to be born with a lighter skin, a weaker constitution, and so forth. But even before you got into that womb, the Abosom were connected to you. The patriclan and matriclan Abosom were connected to you already. So they came into the world with you. So you come into the world, you are a descendant of your father. You're not one of that white cracker's Irish relatives who came back into the womb. You came from your father. Even when he was growing up as a little boy, you were with him all along. So whoever he would have contacted and copulated with and brought you through it, they were going to bring you through it. Now, if you hadn't guided him properly, or if he wasn't listening to guidance and so forth, and you were connected to one of your descendants who didn't listen to guidance, now we're getting back into one of our broadcasts, Debra, Sim, the ramifications of reincarnation. If we weren't strong enough when we lived in a previous lifetime and we made our transition to become an ancestor, who really wasn't that strong, really wasn't that focused, then we're drawn to descendants who are very similar. And even though we're trying to warn them and guide them, because we weren't on our stuff when we were living on earth, and now we're an ancestral spirit who's not really cultivated, then we're trying to inform them, but they're not cultivated as well, and they're not listening, and they mess around and get with the crack or something like that, and then they draw us into that negative situation because we weren't doing what we needed to do the last time we were here. And that's a rare situation, of course. As our people become brainwashed, that becomes more frequent. But so that gets into a whole different subject of how you end up in that situation. Why weren't you drawn to one of your descendants who would never deal with the crack? That depends on the kind of spirit you have and what you were doing in your previous lifetime. Because if you were doing what you need to do on a basic level, the kind of descendants you would be connected to are the kind that would pay attention and at least at a minimum would never copulate with a cracker or never go through with that. So, but you come into the world, you already have these Abosom connected to you. So that is very important for us here in America to understand the nature of these relationships with these Abosom. Because if you were to talk to an Akan person on the continent, they would say, well, you are what your mother is as far as clan-wise. So if your mother's Asona clan, then you're Asona clan, Asona Abusia, and so forth. You're not who your father is. And if your father's Akan and he decides to if a man is Akan, he decides to marry an Igbo woman, and then the child is born, then they would say, well, that child came out of the womb of an Igbo woman, so that child is not Akan, that child is Igbo. That's what they would say. Generally, that's the case when everybody is living the culture, everybody's in the community and so forth. That is the way these relationships unfold. But when things took a turn, when we were forced into the Western Hemisphere, and we were forced into these different relationships and breeding with other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit groups, forced breeding and so forth, and then later on losing our entire identity consciously, not knowing who we are, and some of our people being brainwashed or even raped and so forth, dealing with crackers and so forth. The Nsomafo reconfigure themselves and create channels to return through their descendants. So even though you may be have an Akan descendant walking around in America, and you're an ancestral spirit, and he doesn't know he's Akan yet, and he connects with a woman who is a quote-unquote African-American, she may be Igbo, she doesn't know she's Igbo yet, but you're going to be drawn through their union. You're going to be one of the children that's drawn through their union. You are an Akan spirit. You're going to be connected to him. You're going to come through the womb of an Igbo woman, but you're really not Igbo. You're that same Akan spirit. Then the next time they have a child, they may bring one of her Igbo ancestresses back, and that is an ancestress that comes through, and she's going to come through her Igbo mother as she grows up and they learn about ancestral culture and set up shrines and so forth. They will find out that the mother's Igbo and the father's Akan. But they will have to find out specifically which children are which ones are Igbo and which ones, and we can find that out, of course, directly from the spirits of the children, from the Nsomafo, from the Abosom. So that must be taken into consideration when we talk about our ancestral culture here. That's something that you wouldn't learn from somebody on the continent. They'll just say, oh, well, if your mother's Akan, you're Akan. Your mother's not Akan, you're not Akan, period. That is not true. That's only in a normal situation. When we go through these, upheavals, when we're forced into the Western Hemisphere and blood circles are blended against our will very often, we have to find out how are the Nsomafo returning. They will show us how they return. And we understand that protocol of how they return, and that is incorporated into our body of knowledge here. This is what happens when somebody from here goes to somebody on the continent and they tell you, oh, this is your identity. They very often don't know what they're talking about because they're not in tune with your Nsomafo and who you are. You have to learn directly from your people and these different changes that have taken place and these different protocols that have taken place with regard to Bebra. So, now that we understand it, just like genetically you have, you have the characteristics from the mother and father, spiritually, the spirit force that will animate the ovum, the spiritual force that animates sperm cells. This is the patriclan and matriclan divinity that comes into the world with you. So as soon as you enter into the womb as a spirit, that matriclan and patriclan divinity will activate the energy within the sperm, activate the energy within the ovum, and therefore be connected to you physiologically as well. The sperm and ovum that made up your body, the patriclan and matriclan divinity, the Egyabosom and Abusuabosom energy will activate a sperm cell that made up half of your body and the ovum cell that made up the other half and so forth. And now it will fuse within you as a zygote and an embryo and so forth. And those forces in nature will be connected to you physiologically just as they have always been spiritual. And then eventually you're born into the world. So let's get down and talk about, give some information on page 36 about the Egyabosom, the Ntoro, and the Abusuabosom, the Ntoro, and so forth, these patriclan and matriclan divinities. And we give their, we show some images from ancient Kemet to show that these same ones you can find in ancient Kemet, and we prove that in a couple of different ways. Now, these, by the way, are the Abosom because they're connected to your blood circle spiri-genetically. The sperm cell that made up half of your body is animated by that patriclan divinity. The ovum cell that made up half of your body is animated by that matriclan divinity. That is the energy within you, that further nuanced energy, that specific, unique spiritual configuration of energy, just like your sperm and ovum united to Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA united to create blended to create a unique looking individual. Nobody looks exactly like you. In the same fashion, the spiritual DNA forged together like that creates a unique configuration of energy. And that unique configuration of energy is what you draw on to execute. Talking about She and Shebia. And it's that unique configuration of energy ritually that you invoke to overcome adversity. To execute your function in the world, but part of executing your function in the world is also to overcome obstacles when you come in contact with obstacles or conflict, or what are perceived as obstacles. So this is why we have to focus on that. This is why we have to give the cosmological foundation or background for who these divinities are and their nature in regard to you, so that when you ritually invoke them, you know exactly what's taking place. All right. On page 36, it says the Abusuabosom and the Ntoro Abosom are related to the She and Shebia, which is key. In Akan culture, the way we have structured our relationship with Nyamewa and Nyame, the Great Mother and Great Father, they send us into the world on specific days, specific times, as an indication of what Abosom we were connected to with regard to our Okraa and Krawa. And they also connect us to specific Abosom in a specific manner. Every group on the continent, wherever we are in the world, as Afuraitkaitnit people, has their own specific arrangement, agreement, covenant, structure with Nyamewa. Nyame, that's what defines us as different ethnic groups in reality. Just like every cell in your body is connected to an organ or organ system, they have their own way of doing things. The liver cells support liver functions. The heart cells support heart functions. They're in their different clans or groups or ethnicities, so to speak, but they're all part of the same world body. And Afurakani people, wherever we are in the world, we're part of one Afurakani world body. Of course, the whites and offspring are cancerous cells within the body that need to be exterminated, but they're not part of the natural body. So when we talk about the world body, we're talking about Afurakani people, of African black people only. So we have these different groups. So in the Akan tradition, which is different from other traditions, but they end up getting to the same place. They still learn about the energy that governs them. They do have their own way of getting to the same place of aligning every thought, intention, and action with divine order. This is just the way the Akan do it. And based on the agreement we have with the Abosom and Nsamafo and Nyamewa and Nyame. That's wired with them as a group. There are 7 major Musiakuo, or great circular or matrilineal clans in Akan culture. Musia is the plural of Abusia. If one cannot trace his or her ancestry to one of the 7 great ancestresses of these 7 ancestral clans or matriclans, Musiakuo, then one is not Akan. And again, that tracing is physical and spiritual, spiri-genetic, as we just talked about, via reincarnation. The 7 major Musiakuo are Asona, Agona, Adriana, Ekwana, Asinie, Rietuo, and Asatini. And of course, you have Oyoko, and you have other subgroups of these 7 groups with many different names. And that's why we say there are also variations of these names and subgroups born of these clans. These 7 Musiakuo are headed by 7 great ancestresses, governed by 7 female Abosom. Now, very often, if you communicate with Akan people, or you read about Akan people on the continent, whether they're in Ghana, Ivory Coast. They talk about 7 clans headed by 7 great ancestresses. But they won't often talk about the 7 female Abosom that govern those 7 ancestresses. So it is assumed by some, because we've been infected with Christianity and Islam and all of that, white culture, that the 7 clans are just based on 7 females from ancient times, and we're just descended from those 7 females, and that's it. But in reality, there's a reason why that star system, Abrewa Nani Mba, the old woman, the ancient woman, elder woman, and her children, is representative of those 7, because those 7 stars are actually, in ancient Kemet, called the 7 Het Heru. The whites and offspring call them the Pleiades. But these are 7 Het Heru divinities, daughters of Het Heru, female forces in nature, goddesses Abosom. And the 7 ancestresses are governed by these 7 different divinities. And this is why we have these different characters and characteristics within these 7 clans. The Asona clan has certain characteristics and certain taboos and certain animal totems and so forth, and the Agona clan has certain characteristics and taboos and names and animal totems and HOYE taboo, and all of the different clans have these different things. Why? Because first and foremost, they're governed by 7, each one is governed by one of those 7 divinities with their own character, energy, and function in creation. And those clans reflect that. And then people who are children of those clans reflect that as well. So that's key. Those 7 female Abosom. So in the Akan culture, if you look into the culture, it's there. Abrewe Nani Mba, the old woman and her children, is Het Heru, and those 7 stars. The old woman and her children is Het Heru and her 7 children. That's who it is. And we show an image of those 7 divinities, a couple of images from ancient Kemet. One of them in the form of 7 sacred cows in the heavens, and one of them in the form of 7 female divinities with the cow's horns, the 7 Het Heru. There are also 12 Ntoro, patricircular, patrilineal clan groups, each governed by its own Abosom in Akan culture. Every Akan person inherits his or her Ntoro or Egyabosom father's divinity, patriclan divinity, by virtue of birth. The 12 major Ntoro groups and their related Ntoro Bosom or Egyabosom are Bosom Afram, Bosom Pra, meaning the deity Afram, the deity Pra, Bosom Opo, Bosom Sika, Bosom Akon, Bosom Gerebe, Bosom Ofin, Bosom Ayensu, Bosom Buru or Muru, Bosom Konsi, Bosom Tre, Bosom Krete. Bosom here refers to the deities, thus Bosom Afram is the Abosom of the river Afram in Ghana. Bosom Ofin, often written Bosom Afi, is the Bosom of the river Ofin, and so forth. And then we show some images there. Now, again, in our Akan culture, people say, well, these are 12 Abosom, 12 divinities governing these 12 patriclans in our Akan culture. And they'll say, well, they're just basically 12 bodies of water in Ghana, many of them rivers, and so forth, and that's what it is. And yes, those spirits will take up residence in those rivers. Those spirits are connected to us, but these are ancient spirits. They've been around for thousands of years wherever we migrated because they're connected to us by blood. They govern creation. So we show those 12 divinities, as you see the image on page 37, from chapter 148 of the Pert Imheru, the Book of Coming Forth by Days, in the Papyrus of Ani, misnomer as the Book of the Dead. What you will see is these 7 Het Heru divinities, and then right over next to the side of them are the 12 male divinities. The 7 Het Heru divinities are the 7 divinities that govern the 7 female ancestresses of the great 7 matriclans in our Akan culture, and then those 12 bearded divinities off to next to them are the 12 masculine patricircular deities of Akan culture that we have continued to invoke and worship ever since. The 7 sisters, or the 7 Hedheru divinities, whites and offspring will call that star system Pleiades, the spirits that animate those stars, just like the sun is a star. There are spirits that animate the sun. There are spirits that animate all these various star systems, including this collection of 7, constellation of 7. In the same fashion, you have these 12 divinities, male divinities. These are the 12 assistants or attendants to Sa. Sa is the term for Orion in ancient Kemet. All-Star operates through the star system Orion. So you have All-Star, Sa. And the 12 attendants of Sa or Orion are these 12 divinities. These are the ones that govern the 12, clans in Akan culture. And yes, when we migrated to this region of Ghana and took up residence, those 12 divinities that govern us and govern that star system, those spirits, when they take up a residence on earth, just like a spirit will come and possess somebody when they're engaged in ritual song, ritual dance, and possess a person and move through their body and communicate with the community and heal people and so forth. Well, they will also take possession and take up residence within a river, or take up residence within a lake, or take up residence within a stream or whatever that's near the people. So the people can go to that river for libation, give an offering, and communicate, and that divinity whose energy is in that river will affect the people, even when they drink water from the river or use the water for cleansing or use the water for cooking or whatever it is, constantly infusing the energy of that Abosom into their blood circle, physiologically even, as well as spiritually. So yes, they will take up residence. When we move to North America, into the Western Hemisphere, in the image on the promotional image for the show, we show an image of an Esunu, which is an elephant from the Apedemat temple in ancient Kanat, so-called Nubia. The Esunu, the elephant, is a major Achineboa animal totem for the Asona clan, the Asona Abusia in Akan culture, the matriclan. But then we also show a river. One of the many rivers in Akan culture is the river Afram. One of those 12 patriclan divinities is Abosom Afram. There is an Afram river in Ghana. Afram meaning to blaze or to fire and so forth. It's Afura and so forth. But then when we move to North America, we don't have access to the Afram river. But when we go to a river in North America and invoke the Abosom Afram, which is what we do, and pour libation and give an offering, then that spirit comes and takes up a residence in that river to connect with us wherever we go in the world. So we don't have to travel to the Afram river to connect with this divinity, because this divinity is connected to us, to our spirit bodies, even before we get into the womb. And then when we migrate or are forced to migrate, we can connect with that Abosom wherever we are. So we show an image of a river, the Potomac River here in the D.C. region, because when we go to that river, we invoke Nana Afram right there, so that we can provoke the energy of that Abosom, so we can utilize that energy to heal ourselves, protect ourselves, and so forth, and overcome obstacles, overcome adversity. So we want to show images, and then we show another image of these 12 male divinities standing on the great serpent Ka in Ankh and pulling the boat of Ra. Those 12 divinities pulling the boat of Ra in the Shat Imduat, the book of the spirit world, and so forth, in the 12th hour of the night. These 12 divinities standing upon the Ka. This serpent is called Ka in Ankh, or the soul of the Ankh, the living divinity. The 12 spirits are standing on the Ka, standing on the soul, and pulling the great Ba, Ra, in his sled. That's another representation of those 12 matriclan divinities. It's in the 12th hour of the night, right before the sun is going to be born. And again, of course, that's the same as right before you are to incarnate into a womb, being born once again on earth. Then one of those 12 divinities that's standing on the ka, standing on the soul, and so forth, connected to the soul, is connected to you. So we show that image there. Now, when you look at the names of these divinities in the Akan language, the names of these clans in the Akan language, we're going to put a link in the chat room real quick. In fact, when you go to the Ning site, we'll put the link to the Ning site first, because that particular link that we have actually is on the Ning site. Afurakai-afuraikai.ning.com. That is our separate social media network. And when you go to that site, let's put this right here real quick. There's a PDF file called Amambre, which means culture. It's an excerpt from a book that's written in a tree language. It has a list of these matriclan in the Akan language, as well as, taboos and names and so forth associated with them. And then the names of the 12 sort of patriclan divinities, their Achinebois taboos, their sacred days, as well as their HOODOO, the HOODOO taboos, the Achinebois, the animal totems, the sacred days, and so forth is a little chart. It's all written in Twi, but of course we also, on that website, we also have a link to the Asante Fanti dictionary and some other tree resources, so you can translate that just by looking them up right in the Akan dictionary. So you have a chart of the names in the language of the clans and so forth, and the animal totems and all of that, and some of the characteristics and all of that. So you can download that directly from the Ning site. If you're not on our Ning site, of course, you can join. The key here is with regard to invocation. We talked about ritual invocation. The key is the names of these clans and the names of these divinities. When you invoke them by name, those sound vibrations are provocatory. They provoke the energy of the Abosom, as well as provoking the energy of your Nsamafo, who are part of that clan. So when you utilize these names, when you pour libation at your shrine, when you sit at your Nkombe, you can do that at your shrine. Of course, you can always go outside and do that. Sometimes people live in certain situations where they can't set up a shrine in their house. They live with people who are, not allowing that in their house or whatever. You can always do those things outside, or if you're in a room, renting out a room or whatever, you can set up a portable shrine when you're in your room, engage them, and once you're done, you can put the shrine in its own enclosure, in its own small box, and set it in a safe place or whatever until it's time for you to open it back up and do it again. So you can, of course, do that. But when you invoke them by name, and you can look at that chart to see those names. We have names right here in the book. But when you invoke them by name, when you pour libation, when you engage in ritual practice and call and invoke these Abosom, and you can give, of course, food offerings when you do so. But invoking them by name calls them towards you, no different than if, as we always say, if you're in a dark room and somebody yells out your name, the sound vibrations travel through space, hit you, and you respond because someone is, calling on you. They're literally provoking your energy. Those sound vibrations push and provoke you. Of course, sound vibrations, someone can sing and break a glass. That's energy being released and provoking you. The sound vibrations provoke your eardrums, cause them to oscillate and so forth, vibrate, and you respond. When you call on these Abosom by name, as well as the Nsamafo and these clans, utilizing these names, you begin to invoke their energy. When you do that on a consistent basis, on a daily basis, you begin to learn from them because they come forward. When you're consistent, they come forward. These are your patriclan and matriclan deities that are connected to your blood circles, as well as the Nsamafo who are connected to these blood circles. When you consistently invoke them by the names of these clans, the names of these divinities, then they begin to give you the kind of information that they've been trying to give you all along that you may not have been receptive or open to. So things that they were showing you, or places they were putting you in, or positions they were putting you in, or people they were putting in front of you, or animals they were putting in front of you, and signs of their communication, and signs that you were on the right track or on the wrong track that you may not have been paying attention to because you just assumed that cat is always at that particular place at that particular time when you're walking into the house, or that crow is showing up at a certain time, or a specific dog, or something like the AKANFO. AKANFO, for example. In fact, let's read something really quickly about the AKANFO just to give you an example of what we are talking about. And there's an article online, the Akans and their various Abusia. If you type in Akans and Abusia, you'll find one of the links, and it says Akans and their various Abusia. So, for example, when they talk, and it just gives a basic breakdown. In fact, let me give the link, put the link in the chat room real quick. All right, so let's go down to the Adriana Abusia real quick. Looks like we skipped over it. So he says, I will talk about the Adriana, also called Abrade, Abusia family. These people are believed to have been led out of the ground by a dog which had fire in his mouth. Hence, they are referred to as OHYE. This has also become one of the accolades of the Dorma Hini, who is also from the Adriana family. It is also believed that the first Adriana had a dog that once was to search for food, and on seeing fire, the dog thought there was something to eat for him, and in doing so got his mouth seriously burnt. When the owner saw it coming with the fire, he then said, my dog, you have brought me something worthy. This gave birth to the name of the Adriana people, Achwea Abrade, another accolade, talking about Adriana Nyokompon Satire. And he talks about some more information. Talking about the Adriana people, talking about ancient Akanfo, going back to ancient Kanat, Nubia, and so forth. Remember, Kanat is the ancient title of Nubia. The Adriana clan is the group of people who first discovered the use of Oja, of fire. And they're talking about the dog discovered the fire and so forth and brought it back and so forth and all these different things. But the dog is the Okraa, the dog is a sacred Achinebois or animal totem for people of the Adriana Abusia. So your Insamafo as well as the Abosom will send the Okraa, the dog, to people of that clan at specific junctures at different times in your life as an animal totem, as a messenger, and so forth. We talked about before the Asona people, the Esunu, the elephant, as well as the Kwakwa Dabi, the crow, the black crow, white-crested raven, but also the black crow in North America, is a major animal totem for the Asona Abusia. So they're sending crows, or you see, or manifestations of elephants, or people naturally drawn to get statues of elephants and so forth. You see that in the black community very often. Then they try to figure out, why am I drawn to these elephants? Why am I having these things at certain particular junctures in my life? Why are the crows showing up at certain junctures? The more you invoke the patriclan divinities and matriclan divinities by name, and the patriclan clans as well as the matriclans by name, then you begin to provoke the energy of the Abosom and the Insamafo of these clans, and they respond to you, and you open yourself up to be more receptive. That is the ritual invocation. That is key. And once it starts off with name first, you can also, when you invoke them by name, of course, you can give food according to the nature of that specific ancestral spirit or divinity. In that chart that we put the link to, you'll see certain foods, but then some of those foods you'll find only on the continent. Here in America, you find out from your Insamafo as you deal with them on a regular basis, going to your shrine on a regular basis, daily or every other day or whatever structure you set up with them. The more you deal with them, they will show you, even when you're in the grocery store, which foods they will urge you to grab. That compulsion that you have to grab certain foods, and when you go to the shrine, you will put the food out there and ask them Do you want this? You'll have a negative feeling or repulsion if that's not the kind of food that they need. But the kind of food that they direct you to place on the shrine is simply a center of resonance. That kind of food carries the energy that opens up that communication in a more profound way. Just like if you have medicine, if you're trying to boost the immune system, you don't just use anything. For example, if you need something anti-inflammatory like ginger, you get an anti-inflammatory like ginger. You don't just get some lettuce. You could still feed somebody lettuce and it's not going to harm them, but if you need an anti-inflammatory, you get something that's an anti-inflammatory. If you are communicating with a fiery divinity, you get the kind of food or mineral or whatever that has that fiery energy. You place it on the shrine and it becomes a center of resonance that opens up that communication with that divinity on a more profound level. They always communicate with us, but we're talking about on a more profound level. You get the kind of food or offering that carries their energy, that they can utilize as a shrine to transmit their energy through, to communicate with us, and we can be more receptive to them. So they would direct you as to which food does that and which food does not. It doesn't mean that they can't communicate with you with some other food there, but you're engaged in a specific process. Before we go forward, if you'd like to listen beyond 11:30, there's about 2 minutes left, and it will cut off online, but the people who are on the phone will be able to continue to listen. So if you want to listen beyond 11:30, you must call in within the next minute and a half, actually, 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. And we won't go too much longer beyond 11:30. For those who cannot stay along, please check out our Hoodoo Mayn page on our website, the Hoodoo Mayn or Hoodoo Nation Festival. Our first annual Hoodoo Nation Festival, Hoodoo Mayn, is going to happen on October 17th here in Washington, D.C. It's a free event open to all Afuraitkaitnit people and Afuraitkaitnit people only. You have vendors, all-day event for the entire family. We will be doing a presentation on Hoodoo, the Akan tradition in North America. We will have other presenters dealing with hoodoo and natural herbs and roots and so forth and medicine. And we have a number of vendors with great products and services. We'll be putting the list of the vendors on the page, but you can go to the page now. We do have space for 3 more vendors, so if you'd like to be a vendor, go to the page and get that vendor application, registration form. But we will be sending some more information out. If you'd like to support our efforts, of course, you can purchase our books or make a donation that will assist us to bring our speakers out from different states, because this event is free and the presentations are full. We'll be giving out great information. So please go to the Hoodoo Mayn. Comments in the chat room, and we also have a couple of phone calls, but it is 11:30. We don't want to go too much longer than 11:30. I want to check through some of the comments in the chat room to make sure that we didn't miss any questions. We see some comments or some discussions. We just want to make sure we don't miss any questions. All right. Okay, there's one question. So if I may work through this systematically, when we invoke the Abosom connected us spiri-genetically, we stimulate or provoke this divine energy we need to employ and it slipped up. Hold on 1 second. We need to employ a configuration of this energy in a energy complex in a certain manner that allows us to heal without hurting us in the process. So, well, in the sense, not in the sense of if you do it wrong, it will hurt you per se. Meaning, not in the sense of if you try to invoke the Abosom and you do it incorrectly, then the Abosom will harm you. That's not going to happen because we're not just dealing with blind energy. When people talk about, oh, if you do this wrong, you can hurt yourself and all of that, that's when people are not dealing with Abosom. They're just dealing with, the energetic projections of plant life, animal life, mineral life, and things like that, no different than a chemistry project. So if you mix chemicals in a laboratory, and you don't know what you're doing, and then they explode and you harm yourself, yes, that can happen. If someone is utilizing plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth in a ritual fashion, just on a lower level, trying to conjure some, wayward little spirits and things like that, or just utilizing the energy of these plant life, animal life, and mineral life, just mixing different things, yes, you can create things that will poison yourself or hurt yourself or harm yourself and so forth. We're talking about dealing, of course, with the Abosom that govern our blood circle. So when we invoke them, it's always going to be in harmony with divine order, because if we get outside of divine order, if we seek consciously to engage in some criminality or try to conscript them to help us engage in some criminality or try to do some ritual practice towards them so we can use their quote-unquote energy, do something criminal that's out of harmony with order, they never participate in that. So number one, they never participate in criminality. You cannot force them to do anything. They do not obey us. That is idiotic. No deity obeys anybody. Never has and never will. The deities only obey the Supreme Being. So any fool walking around talking about they make the deities do and say what they do, they're idiots. They're clowns. They're liars. They have a complex. They would like to have a, superiority over the forces in nature. That's like somebody saying that they tell the sun what to do, or they tell the black substance of space what to do, or they tell the earth mother what to do. That's idiotic. We have clowns who walk around talking that nonsense on the continent as well as here. But the Abosom and Samafo don't pay them any attention. They dismiss them. So when you're dealing with real divinities, if you engage in disorder, even if it's unconscious, they're not going to harm you to, teach you a lesson or just say, well, you messed up, so you hurt yourself. They don't operate that way. They withdraw their energy and they only assist. But that's why first aligning with order in thoughts, intentions, and actions, as we say, Jida, Ojida, operationalizes Nanasom. Purification, Ojida, operationalizes ancestral religion. So we purify ourselves because we want to get in harmony with order and be focused and moral. Then we go to the Nsamafo to find out what is the best way to address a specific situation, to overcome a specific adversity. And we invoke them with that mindset. And the energy that is within our bodies, of course, is coming from them. It's just a portion of theirs that was placed within us. So we align with them ritually. So we go to the ancestral shrine, or we go outside to a natural shrine in nature, the base of a tree or river, wherever we're drawn to go. If we can't do what we need to do inside, or sometimes we're just going to go outside anyway. And we invoke the specific Abosom by name. The patriclan Abosom by name, the matriclan Abosom by name. Patriclan ancestresses and ancestors by the name of that clan. For example, Asona clan is Asona Fo, the group of people Fo who are Asona. So we can say Nananom Asona Fo Nsamanfo. That means the spiritually cultivated Nananom Asona clan Nsamanfo, the Asona ancestresses and ancestors. Hold on 1 second. Give us 1 second. Okay, so to invoke the Asonafo Nsamafo, or we talked about the Adriana clan, the Nananom Adrianafo Nsamafo, the Nananom of the Adriana clan. You're directly evoking them. Or the Nananom Agonafo Nsamafo, the Agona clan, or the Nananom Dretuofo Nsamafo, or the Nananom Asachirifo Nsamafo, the Nananom Asiniefo Nsamafo, the different very different Mbusia, great clan, or Nana Afram, Bosom Afram, or Nana Bosom Pra, or Bosom Krete, or Bosom Sika, Bosom Akom, whichever one you are connected to. When you go to your ancestral shrine, they will show you who you are connected to. That divinity as well is already shown you probably at some point, and you didn't realize it. The Nsamafo will help you realize what they have shown. And then you can call on that Abosom by name. So you will go to the shrine, pour a libation, call on that Abosom by name. You can learn from your Nsamanfo when you sit with them on a regular basis. Even after reading the information we put out and the chart with the names of the clans and, certain foods or whatever, but when you sit with the Nsamanfo, attuning to which clan you are from, and they will show you that and confirm that for you over time. Then you begin to utilize that name in your invocation. And when you engage that process ritually and sit at the shrine with susu home meditation and so forth, then you begin to learn directly from them, begin to invoke that energy and utilize that energy once it's invoked and aroused within you to overcome obstacles and get that kind of guidance. So this is what we're talking about. Okay, we're going to get a call on the phone line. Egyabosom on the phone line, number 6254. You had a question or comment? Egyabosom, number 6254. Okay. Looks like the person was just listening. All right, so let me make sure we didn't miss anything else in the chat room right quick. How long will it take for the show to be up for download? It usually takes about a half an hour after the end of the show, sometimes 45 minutes or so, for it to be ready on the page, on the Blog Talk Radio page. All right. Okay. On the phone line, Egyabosom, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, I had a question. I was wondering, say if you have your shrine, but you have family members that aren't, they don't necessarily agree with you. Will that have an impact on the household?
Now, impact on the household in what regard?
Well, I don't know, I mean, if they disagree with it, I mean, I guess that can have, that can have an effect, but will have, in terms of the deities, though, will have an impact, I guess that in that sense.
Okay, so you talk about your with or both?
Yes.
Okay, so in fact, either way, so with regard to the Abosom, whether it's, for example, if you have blood relatives and they're totally against, everything that you're doing, they have no impact whatsoever on the forces in nature. They're just brainwashed individuals. They can believe in Jesus and Muhammad and everything else. Of course, Jesus never existed. So they can, every time they get down and pray to Jesus or pray to, Allah or Yahweh, they're praying absolutely nothing because those characters don't exist. So the Nsamanfo are just watching them foolishly praying to nothing. And sometimes Nsamanfo will help them out. If they're nice people and they're just brainwashed, Nsamanfo are trying to inform them and so forth. They'll inform them through you. But sometimes the people still don't pay attention. And sometimes Nsamanfo will help them out because they know if they're a parent and they have children, they do need to take care of their children, so they will, quote unquote, answer their prayers, and then the foolish person will attribute that quote unquote blessing to Jesus or Yahweh or Allah, even though the Nsamanfo are the one who actually got them what they needed to get. No different than a child with Santa Claus believing that Santa Claus is the one that's responsible for the presents under the tree, and in reality it's actually the parent. Well, it's our parents and grandparents who are responsible for answering the prayers of all these people who are in church praying, all these people in mosques and everything praying in our communities. It's the Nsamanfo and the Abosom who are, quote unquote, answering these prayers, and they foolishly attribute it to something fictional. So they can be upset or angry or mad and all this other stuff if you're engaged in ancestral religion, but those foolish projections have no effect whatsoever on the forces that animate the sun and moon, stars, earth, mother, and everything else. They have no impact on the Nsamanfo, the Nananome Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors. The only influence they have is on their own relatives, as well as some deceased negative type relatives who were not in harmony with order either. And sometimes if they're very negative, then they draw the kind of negative deceased relatives, and even sometimes non-relatives who are just as negative as they are, and then you can have some confusion in the house like that. But that could happen whether it was them or anybody else drawing those kind of negative entities to the house. But their anger or their aversion to ancestral religion has no impact on the functioning of the forces in nature whatsoever.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. May I say we appreciate the call. Okay. So, just want to make sure we didn't miss anything else. All right. Okay. So, we can actually end here. The key we wanted to get to is dealing with the nature of She and Shebia in relationship to things we have talked about before. For example, when we did the broadcast, Uncombre, Ancestral Shrine, Communication, and Liberation. Talking about establishing an ancestral shrine, step by step and so forth, and we went through those documents and everything. You can download that. We did a broadcast on the Ntoro and the Abusia. We talked about the patriclan and the matriclan, the patriclan divinities, the matriclan divinities, and so forth, and the nature of those things. We talked about that in detail. What we wanted to focus on here is the relationship of the She and Shebia, our natural force of compulsion, impulsion that we utilize to use that energy of the patriclan and matriclan divinity. We had to talk about the nature of the She and Shebia first, what it is, and then when we talk about these 12 patriclan divinities, you're connected to one of them if you're Akan on the patriclan side. These 7 matriclan divinities and the 7 great ancestresses, you're connected to one of them if you're Akan. When you invoke them by name, you're utilizing your She and your Shebia, you're utilizing your force of compulsion to actually act, to activate the energy that's part of your blood circle, your spiri-genetic blood circle. So when we talk about in those other broadcasts, going to the shrine and invoking and so forth, now we're talking about activating the energy of these Abosom specifically to overcome adversity. So when you're talking about adversity, when you're talking about conflict, the first thing, of course, you do, and we should be doing this on a regular basis anyway, you find out from your own Okraa, and we did a broadcast on Okraa, the rituals to order life. That's on the YouTube page as well. So we're talking about the nature of the Okraa. When you read this book, the Okraa complex, we talk about the nature of the Okraa and setting up a shrine for your Okraa as well. So first thing you should do on a regular basis anyway, you attune to your own Okraa. You learn your divine function. So you know what you need to do, what's in harmony with order, what's out of harmony with order, who you are, what your function in creation is. That's the Okraa and Okraa. But then you have a specific configuration of energy that's wielded through the She and Shebia. What is that specific configuration of energy? Well, physiologically, it's the DNA from your father and the DNA from your mother. Spiritually, it's the spiritual force that animated the sperm cell from the father and the spiritual force that animated the ovum cell from your mother. That's the patriclan and matriclan divinity. So you know the names because we've laid these names out here in the book and on the site and so forth. You find out from your Nsamanfo which clan you're from by going to your ancestral shrine on a consistent basis. Once you find out from them and from your own Okraa as well, and in your dreams and everything, the Nsamanfo, the Abosom will come to you in different ways to confirm these things if they haven't already. If you haven't recognized it already, they'll confirm it. And then you begin to utilize the name of the patriclan divinity, the Ntoro, the name of the Abusuabosom and so forth, specifically when you're engaged in Susu home meditation to provoke their energy. Those sound vibrations provoke their energy. You will also learn from them and the Nsumafo what kind of food offerings you can give, which is simply a battery. The food itself is simply a battery that provokes the energy of the Abosom and links it with yours as well through ritual practice. So you engage that process as well. But the first thing is you find out from your Okraa what your function is, find out from your Nsumafo what clan you come from, male and masculine, feminine, male and female, patriclan and matriclan, and then you utilize the name in the language to invoke these Abosom. And as you do that on a consistent basis, engaged in susu home meditation, engaged in pouring libation and so forth, and giving offerings, then you'll learn in detail. They will give you that information and be more clear, more receptive, and you'll be able to generate that energy. We had other broadcasts where we talked about the Okraa, the ritual to order life. We have one called Ba and Baat, in spirit, discipline, rituals to balance life, and we talked about the Ebba and the Yam, ritual to equilibrate life and so forth. So we had a series of 6 broadcasts talking about ritual practices. And with the Okraa, the Okrawa, the Ba and the Baat, we talked about the Aku and Akut, the Hunhom. We talked about the Ab and Hati, the heart and heart-lung complex, talking about the heart and equilibration of life and so forth. We talked about the Subine, sacred character, sacred deliberation, a number of different broadcasts, 6 of them dealing with ritual practice, talking about ordering life, balancing life, equilibrating life, purifying life, all these different things with regard to ritual. So you can look at those broadcasts as well. But the key here is understanding the She and Shebias connected to the patriclan and matriclan Abosom and invoking them by name. And once you do that, then you begin to learn directly from them and you become motivated by them towards specific thoughts, intentions, and actions that will allow you to overcome these adverse circumstances. To avoid many circumstances, and to presage these adverse circumstances, but also to overcome adversity. So, if you have those who have some questions, of course, you can send us an email if we didn't get to your question online or on the phone line. Hit us up we're on Facebook, OHYE on Facebook, Kwesi Akan on Facebook, OHYE on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And of course, on our OHYE.com site, you can email us there as well, the AKANFO NANASOM at OHYE.com. And, ask us whatever questions you may have if you don't see the information on the site or in the broadcast. We have over 177 broadcasts. I think this is 178. So many of those issues we have dealt with in detail in those broadcasts, as well as in our 16 books. So when you go to the Nhoma page, the publications page, you'll see our 16 books. Again, the 16 books are free online, but then the softcover versions we sell as well. So if you don't see those answers there, of course, you can connect with us and we can get those questions answered. So, Yedase, we thank you for tuning in once again, and Yebeshiabio, we will meet again. That's up.